Hello once again. Today I'm going to explain what is Chaotica. For a quick introduction, Chaotica is a game I developed years ago when I was in college. Just a simple tabletop game where I would create maps based on where the players would explore. It really is quite simple. The idea is you create a story together with the other players. You have the narrator, the person who, or arbiter, the person who runs the game. It was always me for a while until I taught other people how to use the system. The narrator will describe the scene, the situation, the players describe what their characters do in response, and then the narrator either rolls dice or somewhat arbitrarily decides what will happen. There's a variety of tables I developed to help the narrator decide what happens next, and ultimately it's just collaborative storytelling. This does not have a lot of the rules and details that you will find in most tabletop RPGs. It's not D&D, though ironically, I ended up playing D&D because everyone kept telling me that my game was, well, it reminded them of D&D, which is great, I suppose. And I've enjoyed playing Dungeons & Dragons as well, but I find that Chaotica has a special place in my heart, not just because it is my own creation, but it is so much more faster and streamlined than other tabletop RPGs I've seen. Of course, in recent years, it has taken a virtual turn where we play it online. Basically, any system that lets you talk with people, Zoom, Discord, Google Meets, any system that lets you talk with people is sufficient to play Chaotica. The spreadsheet that I developed years later, originally it was a tabletop game, and I rolled dice to determine various things. I had tables written out to determine what to roll dice for. At some point, I started converting all this to a spreadsheet where I would use random numbers on the spreadsheet to create, to populate those tables. And that allowed me to effectively roll thousands of dice all at once, which is much less time consuming and allows me to tell you the same information those dice rolls would have given, except I don't have to roll 20 dice to find out what's underneath every rock. So what is Chaotica? At this point in its development, Chaotica is a very big spreadsheet that gives me the tools I need to make up a story as I go. That's functionally what it is. And saying that, oh, this is play pretend for adults, well, yes, basically it is. Then again, so is D&D and most other tabletop RPGs. You create a story collaboratively with players, and there's a bunch of different degrees to that you can create the story together. Ultimately, the Chaotica spreadsheet is a tool that allows you to do exactly that. Quickly create maps, characters, lore, storyline, and many other things that can be used to give the players something to respond to. It makes creating the story together that much easier. So a game of Chaotica can represent a variety of different layers of detail. At the simplest stage, a game of Chaotica can be immediately starting with a newly generated map. Boom. Give a description of the area, and the players will start to explore it. And then we will decide what the players' characters are and what the story is as you explore. That's the fastest way to start in Chaotica. On the other end of the spectrum, you can put lots of detail into building your character. And if you're going to do this, I recommend having a hometown, of course, characters' abilities, weaknesses, personality. Mentors and rivals are important. Any story you create needs to have conflict, and having those relationships for your character, I think, is one of the most important parts to make it fit into an overall world. One of the things I love doing is getting a group of characters that have independently been created. We don't have a common world yet. And then I build the world to accommodate those characters together into a single game, and I build a story around that. One of the generative tools that Chaotica has is the ability to not just build maps that you can explore. Of course, you can keep going in one direction, you reach the edge of the map, generate another map, and keep on going. It's a nice surprise for me and for the player together to build and discover the world together. Even the first versions of Chaotica on the tabletop used that function, and that remains the way it is today. The generative tables I've developed, you can have, they build lore, they build characters, they build a storyline. The storyline, originally I had a linear storyline, and that just didn't work out very well. The branching storyline that I built was much more effective because it let players do whatever they want. And it would tell me, as the narrator, okay, these are other events that might be happening later that the players missed. I can introduce that as rumors that they run across and help build the world together as players explore in whatever direction they decide to go. Of course, whatever the players decide, that's where the story is. But I think it adds a special flavor to the game to have story beyond what the players are doing, where there's other stuff going on in the world. And of course I give them hooks, and that's what I try. That's the real strength of the story generation, is it gives you as the narrator choices to present to the players. Do you want to take this person's quest? Do you want to go this way? You can present them with 3 or 4 clear options, and if they decide to go off-roading at that point, then great. But it gives you a structure that they can, a kind of a multiple choice junction in the story where they can choose different things. And if you want, you can go back and follow the same story again and make different choices. It's quite dynamic that way. The thing I like about the lore generation is that it gives you background that you can build. I'll make another video where I show off the lore generation and character generation, of course. I do really get into world building. World building is one of the things I like most about Chaotica. One of the problems, though, I've encountered with Chaotica is precisely this, that it is too chaotic. I've considered putting this into a package where I could sell it as a game, like other tabletop RPGs are sold. And the problem with that is, what am I even selling? I have an instruction manual, which it needs touching up, but it exists. And I have a spreadsheet. These are electronic assets that don't really sell well in a physical manual, and certainly not in a box. You don't put a spreadsheet into a box that you can physically sell. And even if I sell them as virtual assets, what artwork do I use? There's a reason I've been using AI. There's a reason I use AI art for these videos. When you create the lore itself of a world, and that lore is created through random numbers on a spreadsheet that then the human mind interprets and gives order to and turns into something that everyone can look at that and enjoy and explore together. That's what this is. It's random numbers. And yes, you can make all the jokes you want about the random numbers god. That's what this is. And the fun thing about that is just that you as the narrator, I like to say narrator instead of DM because this is not D&D, you as the narrator get to explore the world together with your players. And that's one of the key appeals to Chaotica, I think. The other thing to consider is, if I want to turn this into a package, a saleable package, and I do, I've used it for educational classes as well. You can adapt it to almost any curriculum. I usually use it to teach English and Spanish because it ultimately is a listening and speaking exercise, not to mention role play innately. If I wanted to turn this into a saleable package, it needs to have artwork, it needs to have figures, bells and whistles, something you can use physically. And it's really hard to do that as the virtual tool that it has become. If you want to turn Chaotica into something that can be sold, which is what I would like to do, I'd like to have people who sign up for classes with it, and I would like to use it as a tool because I think it's a really powerful tool, and I'd like to teach others how to use it as well. But it is hard to turn a tool like this into a saleable package. There is no core lore I can point to. With things like D&D, you can look at maps of the Sword Coast, and there are official lore creatures that exist in the D&D universe. And I could try to make some kind of official lore of the Chaotica Megaverse that combines all of these procedural worlds together. And in a sense, I do have some of that in the manual, but that is tough to sell as a single package, because does this world have magic in it? Does it have gods? Does it have vampires? Does it have any of these cultural touchstones that we've come to rely on? May or may not exist in your world. And given the way things generate, you might have a world where all werewolves are spellcasters or something like that. And there can be all sorts of strange lore that pops up and creates wonderfully unique worlds, but you can't sell that as a package because the thing that creates the worlds is the package. And normally when you sell games like this, it is you are selling that particular fantasy or science fiction world. Oh yes, I do have a sci-fi map as well as I have a sci-fi sheet and a fantasy sheet, and they do kind of overlap with each other. And the manual explains a bit about how those can be used together or independently. And that is my issue with this wonderful tool I've created. I want to find people to share it with. I would like to make money with it if possible, because I do need a job. And this is my attempt at self-promotion and seeing what I can do with what I've created, because I enjoy teaching online, and I enjoy watching people discover new things that I create alongside with them, and I look forward to doing more of that. So I will try to keep publishing more of these videos, and any suggestions at this point are very much welcome, whether it's how to do better AI artwork or avoid AI artwork entirely, or have some kind of visual element to something that is functionally not a visual exercise. Any of those suggestions I am very much open to, and I hope to get some more interaction and some suggestions for marketing, and hopefully I will be able to turn this tool into something that many more people can enjoy. Well, talk to you next time.